I told you about simple browsers yesterday that you can simply create objects of Chrome driver, Firefox driver, Edge driver, and after creating the objects, you can launch these browsers. Okay. Now, the thing which arises is that if I have to write a script which will work on all the browsers, then how do I do that? Okay, suppose I have to write a single script which works on all the browsers. All right. Okay. So I'll just make a new package. Package means a folder under a source folder. Okay, I'll call it as interfaces. Right. Suppose I have to, I'll create a new class over here known as dynamic browsers. Right. So I have to open my browser dynamically. Okay. If I am having, suppose if I am having the browser name as Mozilla, then the complete script should run on Mozilla browser. If I change the Mozilla browser to Chrome, then the script should be running on Chrome. So how do we do this? Okay, well, it's easy. Okay, but you need to understand, like some people think that fine, you can use simple if else statements. You can write if the browser name is equal to Mozilla, then you can simply write the code to open Firefox over here and put an else statement that else if the browser name is Chrome, then simply write the code to open up Chrome over here. But this is not going to work this way. Okay, because if you have if else blocks for every browser, for Edge also, if you have the if else block and I write the code for Edge over here, the problem which we will face is that suppose after opening Firefox, I have to go to a particular website. Then I'll have to use this object Firefox driver, say dot get go to a certain website, http yahoo.com. And if I have to click or interact with any component on the page, then I will have to write the Selenium code over here to interact with the browser. Okay, similarly in case of Chrome as well, I will end up writing separate code to interact with the browser. In Edge also, I will have to write some separate code. Now, this is not something which we want. Okay, although using if else statements, I am having one script. I just need to change the browser name over here from Chrome to say Edge. Then control will go inside this else block, but I'm just writing a separate piece of code for Edge. So that's not what I want, right? So to solve this problem, we have the concept of interfaces in Java language. All right. So let us see what interfaces are and how interfaces they can actually help us. All right. So interface is something which gives you an idea about the system, what system is, how it works, and how it behaves. Fine. I'll make a new class or a new interface. So let's go back to Java and understand what interfaces are. Right. And suppose I will give it a very simple name, for example, browser. Okay. Now interface in Java is something which gives you an idea about the system. Like for example, you have a website. Okay. You go to any website like we go to the Selenium website, selenium.dev. Okay. Hold on. This website over here gives you an idea that what Selenium is about. It tells you that fine, it's a browser automation tool, this, that, but whether this automation tool is for you or not. Okay, it automates the browsers, but whether this, how this works, what are the commands, you really don't know. So this website is like an interface for you, which tells you what Selenium is, but actually you don't know what Selenium is, what are the commands and all. So similarly, in Java also we have got interfaces which tell us that what the system is all about, but what happens really inside it, you don't know. Okay, so interfaces just have got method bodies. For example, the functions of the browser, public void open, this will open the browser, or public void load page. So this is another function of the browser. Okay, public void user alert. So these are simple functions which are part of a browser. So the interface browser, if someone looks at this interface, he will come to know that fine, these are the features or these are the properties of a browser. Okay, now an interface in Java has to be implemented. We implement the interfaces, right? For example, I'm telling you pure Java concepts. Okay, this has got nothing to do with Selenium, even if the name is browser, don't get confused. Okay, suppose there is a implementing class known as, say, Chrome browser. So what we do is that in Java, we implement the interfaces. Chrome browser class will implement the interface browser. So a class will implement an interface. Okay, a class actually goes and implements the interface. When a class implements an interface, it implements all the functions of that interface. Okay, you move the mouse over this error and add the unimplemented methods. Then all the three methods would be having the method bodies and they will come up. If a class is implementing an interface in Java, it is mandatory for that particular class to implement all the functions of the interface. Even if I remove one of the functions, this will throw me an error. Okay, so the interface is something which is incomplete. It is abstract. It has just got the method names, but a class which is implementing an interface, okay, will have the methods in it which will be coming from the interface like this. What is the advantage of this? I will tell you. Okay, so I'll just write over here Chrome browser opening, and I will write over here Chrome browser loading page. Okay, and in case of alert, I will write Chrome browser user alert. This at the rate override is an annotation. It is optional. You can remove it or you can keep it. This basically means that this function is coming up from this particular interface. Okay. Now, similarly, I can have one more class. For example, I can have, say, Mozilla browser. So Mozilla browser will also implement the browser interface. So if a class is implementing an interface, so in Mozilla browser as well, I will have to implement all the three functions. Okay, inside this, I can write like I had it in Chrome browser opening over here. Write Mozilla browser opening. Then in load page, I can write Chrome browser loading page. And in user alert, I can write Chrome browser user alert. So I can, sorry, Mozilla, I can just change the name. Okay, so basically the class, it remains, the interface remains the same. The classes are different. But what did I achieve out of this? If you look at the whole thing, then, you know, if you apply simple common sense, then what I did was that I made two classes and one interface. Okay. In this browser interface, I made say open and different functions, say ABC and DEF and XYZ. So whatever functions I was making in this class, the other two classes, my Chrome browser and my Mozilla browser, had the same set of functions ABC, DEF, XYZ. Okay, so what is the advantage of doing this? What is the advantage? I could have never made this interface and I could have directly made these two classes. The advantage is that if these two classes are implementing the interface, then just by looking at the interface, I will be able to tell that what will be the functions in the two classes. If tomorrow more browsers they come up in the market, then all those browsers will have browser Java files will have the same set of functions. So just by looking at the interface, I'll be able to tell that fine, these are the set of functions in these implementing classes. So it gives a structure to the whole application. It gives a uniformity, a discipline to the application that this is the browser class and these are the three functions in the browser class and these are the core implementing classes, Chrome browser or Mozilla browser, which implement the interface browser. Okay, right. So out here, when I implement this particular interface, whichever browser will come up, new browser class will implement this interface, will have these three set of functions. Okay, now if you look at the Selenium website and if you look at the download section, go to the documentation, which is the Java documentation, you will observe that if you go to the frames view, you will observe on the left hand side that these are the classes. Whatever is written in italics is an interface. For example, we have this mouse. Mouse is basically an interface. Okay, and these are the two classes, remote mouse and event firing mouse, which are implementing this particular interface. All right. So just by looking at this interface and the implementing classes, you'll come to know that fine, these are the classes of my interest if I have to deal with mouse. Similarly, everybody has heard about the word WebDriver. Okay, it is written over here in italics. Technically, WebDriver is an interface. Okay, and these are the implementing classes. All right, all the driver classes like Chrome driver or Chromium driver, Edge driver, Firefox driver, Opera, Safari, Remote, all these classes are the implementing classes of the WebDriver interface. Okay, You can read about these classes by clicking on them. Okay, so out here, if you look at this interface WebDriver, then this interface WebDriver has got some common functions which are used to interact with a web page. For example, a function like close will close the web page. Find element will find an element on the web page. The get function will retrieve a web page. Okay. Get title will get the title of the web page. Right. So these are different functions in WebDriver interface which will help you interact with the browser. And all the implementing classes will have the same functions. So we have seen that although Firefox driver or Chrome driver or Edge driver are three different classes, I can create the objects of these three classes separately, but internally all these three classes are implementing the WebDriver interface. So all these classes would have the same set of functions. If I have to go to yahoo.com, I write firefox driver.get. And if I have to print the title of Yahoo, I write firefox driver.get title. Similarly, in Chrome driver, if I have to go to a URL, I will use the same get function. The function remains the same, yahoo.com, and Chrome driver dot get title will give you the title of Yahoo. So get function, get title function, the function names are same in these classes. Okay. Only thing is that these classes are different and they implement the same interface. Like we had the browser interface. So whichever class will implement the browser interface, whether it is Chrome browser or Mozilla browser, the function names remain the same. If I just create a new class over here known as a test browser, and I create the object of, say, a Chrome browser class. So I can call the functions like a Chrome browser dot load page or Chrome browser dot open. Okay, so I can call all the functions of the Chrome browser class, user alert. Okay, and similarly, I can create the object of Mozilla browser, and I can write, say, Mozilla browser dot open Mozilla browser dot load page Mozilla browser dot user alert. The function names will remain the same. Only thing is that the classes are different. So similarly, whether it is Firefox driver or Chrome driver, the names of the functions will remain the same. But it still doesn't solve the problem. The problem was that I want to open the browser dynamically. Okay, if I have to open the browser dynamically, then out here you create the object of Mozilla, Chrome, Edge, and you create the respective driver class objects. If you are creating driver class objects over here, then out here, individual, sorry, yeah, out here, individual classes are there, Firefox driver or Chrome driver or Edge driver, and these individual classes you have to create the objects and deal with them. So you eventually you write up the same code again and again for every browser. You don't solve the problem. You only see that fine, the function names are same, but eventually you'll have to write separate code. So there's a solution for this as well. There are two advantages of using interfaces. The first advantage is that all the implementing classes have the same class name. Okay, so over here, whether it is Chrome browser or Mozilla browser, you will have the same class name. Let's talk about the second advantage. If you have, sorry, the same function names. If you have any questions, you can let me know. Okay, so I am putting a demarcating line. So one advantage is that same function names in different classes. Now, suppose my Chrome browser says that fine, I want to have another function, a special function, which is uh, only there in my browser. For example, Chrome security. Say there is some special security which I'm offering. So this is not coming from the interface. So I will give this function specially in case of Chrome. So when you create the object of Chrome driver, you can call this function. This is the proprietary function of Chrome browser. It's not coming from interface. If you run this program, then of course it will print everything. Chrome security it is printing because I'm calling this function over here. But obvious, okay, this cannot be called with Mozilla browser because this is only in Chrome. Now I'm going to do things a little differently. Observe carefully. Earlier till now we had created the object of Chrome browser like this. That is Chrome browser CB equals to new Chrome browser. Or we had created the object of Mozilla browser like this. That is Mozilla browser AMB equals to new Mozilla browser. Now I'm going to create the object in a different way. Okay. I will not create object of Chrome browser or Mozilla browser. I will write the interface browser reference. So browser B1 equals to new Chrome browser. Now this is a little different and a little tricky. Earlier I had created the object like this. Now I'm creating the object like this. The object is of Chrome browser only, but over here the reference is of the browser interface, and over here the reference was of Chrome browser. So basically I am having the reference of browser interface pointing towards the class which is implementing. Okay, so you have got the browser interface reference pointing towards the class. Now, how is this line different than this? With this line with B1, I can access everything which is there inside the Chrome driver class coming up from the interface. But I cannot access the proprietary function Chrome security. If I try to access this, I will get an error. So if you create an object like this, then you can only access the functions in the Chrome driver class, the functions in the implementing class, which are coming up from the interface. If you create the object like this, you can access all the functions from the interface plus the proprietary. So what is the use of creating the object like this? Why do we create object like this when you have a limited access? You cannot access the functions which are proprietary. Well, uh, the point is very simple. Okay, if you have to create the object like this, then you get an edge. I can write say browser B2 equals to new Mozilla browser. Okay, and I write b2 dot open. So it will call the open function in the Mozilla browser. So when I run this code, see Mozilla browser opening. But I can write in next line that b2 points towards new Chrome browser as well. The browser interface can point towards, reference can point towards any implementing class. This is the advantage. If I give the same command b2.open over here, so this will print for Mozilla and this will print for Chrome because b2 was pointing towards Chrome on line number 28. So when you run this, you will see that Chrome browser opening, Mozilla browser opening. So this is the advantage. B2 can dynamically be pointed towards Mozilla browser or it can be pointed towards object of Chrome browser. It's completely our choice. Okay, I can declare a browser reference, say browser b3 equals to null. That means b3 is not pointing anywhere. Okay, the reference type is pointing to null. Okay, b3 doesn't point anywhere. But based on my choice, I can make b3 point towards Chrome browser or I can make b3 point towards Mozilla browser. I call the functions over here, say b3.open or b3.load page. This will call the functions from Chrome. And if I write b3.open same function and b3.load page, this will call the functions from Mozilla. So if you run this, you see that. Okay, so these are the functions from Chrome. So when you use the interface reference, you can dynamically point the reference to any object of the implementing class. Like we have the same structure in Selenium. In Selenium, I just told you that we have the interface WebDriver and all the other classes, whether it is Chrome driver, Firefox driver, Edge driver, Safari driver, all the driver classes, Edge driver or Firefox driver, all these driver classes are implementing the same interface, WebDriver interface. Okay, so I can till now what I was doing was I was making the code like this Chrome driver cd equals to new Chrome driver. Or I was making the code on Firefox like this Firefox driver ft equals to new Firefox driver. Now instead of this reference of the original class, I can make the interface reference. I can write WebDriver d1 equals to new Chrome driver. Okay. Or WebDriver d1 equals to new Firefox driver. But the advantage is I can move d1 on the next line. I can make d1 point towards Chrome driver. Or I can make d1 point towards new Edge driver. Okay. So based on my choice, I can make d1 to null. And based on my choice, I can make d1 point towards any implementing class. Like I had done in case of browser over here, b3 was null and I Based on my choice, I made it point towards the browser. Similarly, over here, WebDriver D1 is null. Based on my choice, I can make D1 point towards Firefox driver or Chrome driver or Edge driver. It's completely my choice. Okay. If you have any questions, please let me know. Anything. Okay. Now out here, uh, we have this dynamic browsers class. Okay. Now in dynamic browsers, you have to you give the browser name as Edge over here, and you start the browser dynamically like this. The problem was that I had to write separate code. So I don't need to write that anymore. I just need to give the WebDriver reference, say WebDriver driver to null. And based on my choice, I can make driver point towards new Chrome driver. Okay, if it is Mozilla, then sorry, it is new Firefox driver. And then based on my choice over here, I can make driver point towards new Chrome driver. And if it is Edge, then I can make driver point towards new Edge driver. And then once you are here, that means your browser is launched. Okay, if I am having Edge over here, and if I am running this code, then this will simply launch Edge. Hold on. It's taking a little while. You see that? And similarly, if it is Chrome, if you run this, it's going to simply launch Chrome. Right. And if it is Mozilla, it is going to simply launch Mozilla. So you have a very powerful system with which you can dynamically open the browser. And moreover, once the browser is launched, you can actually fire commands because the commands are same. If you write over here driver.get and you give the command http yahoo.com, then the commands are the get function remains same across all the driver classes which I can use. And I want to get the title of the page, I can write driver.get title. So no matter which browser I am opening, Mozilla, Chrome or Edge, this single script will initially launch the browser, and then the commands will remain same because the commands are coming up from the interface. Okay, so when you run this code, this will open up Chrome and take it to yahoo.com and print the title. Are you having any doubts or questions or confusions? Please let me know.
So Ashish, so earlier we were using the browser drivers and now we're using the interface drivers, right?
Earlier, we were simply creating the object like Firefox driver equals to new Firefox driver. Now
Mm-hmm.
I'm using the reference of the interface
Okay.
because this can be dynamically pointed towards the implementing class.
Okay.
Okay, and this is very important. This will be used till the end whenever you have to open the browsers dynamically. Okay, you will have to use this.
Okay.
Right. Now, uh, out here, once this is done, you have to interact with the elements on the web page. Okay, you have to learn about Selenium commands that, if you have to click somewhere, how do you click? You have managed to launch the browser, reach a particular website, but how do you interact with the components of that particular website? All right. So that's the next thing. To interact with the components of the website, you need to understand about the page source. Okay, every website has a particular page source. Fine. For example, if you visit Yahoo only, okay, or let it stabilize. You go to any website, this one will load faster. Right. So if you go to this website and if you look at the page source, you right click on any website and you will see the option of page source. So you need to understand how this page source actually works. Okay, if I write control plus, this will maximize. Page source is nothing, but it's a combination of tags and attributes. Okay, this is the div tag. Okay, this has got one attribute class. Under this div tag, there is this UL tag. Then there is this li tag. Okay, then this is again one div tag and there is an attribute ID associated with it. There is an attribute class. So every tag is something which starts with a conical bracket, can have a zero or number of attributes. Like this li tag has got no attributes, but this li tag below it has got the attribute class. Similarly, this div tag has got this ID attribute. So a tag may not have any attribute or it can have any number of attributes. So with the help of these tags and attributes, we identify the elements on the web pages. Okay. And moreover, we don't inspect the web pages like this. In Chrome, suppose this is the link sports. You right click on the link and you will get the option to inspect the link. When you click on it, Chrome Inspector will open up. Okay, in Chrome Inspector, you will have this small arrow. You click on this arrow and move the mouse over any element. It will show you the HTML code of that element. Say I move to sports. I click on sports. This is the HTML code of the sports link. It's an anchor tag A with an attribute like href attribute is there. Okay. You can move this window at the bottom of the screen. You can use this option dock to bottom and this will go at the bottom. This is more comfortable this way. Just increase. the font. So this is the link anchor tag. It's got one href attribute associated with it, one on click as well. The text of this link is sports. If I change this, I can change this. If I type my name over here, then you see that over here, my name would be written. Okay, so this is the text of the link. And this is the tag name and attribute. Similarly, you can investigate any element. I can investigate this open link, or I can investigate this movies tab as well. Okay, this is also a link anchor tag. All right. In Chrome, you can investigate it like this. In Mozilla, also you can investigate. Look, page source always remains the same. If you go to any website, like I go to this particular website, right over here, if I inspect any link in case of Mozilla, then I will have the Mozilla inspector ready. This is also same like Chrome. All right, but I prefer to investigate my web pages in Chrome and build the script, and that script works on all the browsers. Basically, the page source which we look at, this page source is the response from the server. This is same across all the browsers. This will not vary. So you inspect the browser, maybe you inspect Chrome browser, build your script. That script will work on all the other browsers as well. Okay, because all the browsers they work on the same website, and for same website, the page source remains the same. There are hardly any websites which have different page sources for different browsers. It never happens. Okay, so I don't prefer to investigate my websites or the applications in some other browser. I prefer Chrome. It offers rich features in this inspector, which we will be studying. And I build the scripts over here and I can run them on the other browsers as well. Okay, but how do I inspect? How do I finalize my elements? How do I extract the elements? Okay, let's look at that now. Fine. Let us look at a simple piece of website, say zoho.com. Okay, and it's got a simple login page. You click on login link, or hold on, this is slow. Actually, this requires something else. Let us look at this login link only. Okay, this has got a user ID and password section, or you have salesforce.com as well. Hold on. Let's take up this example. Yeah, so this is the login page on salesforce.com. So let's try to interact with some elements on this web page. It has got text fields, it has got checkboxes, it's got a button as well, it's got a link as well, and some images and all. So let's try to interact with some elements on this web page. And how do we do that? Um, Let us understand that. Okay, look, there are different ways to identify the elements, and there are different strategies with which you can identify the elements. If you inspect the element and move the mouse over username field, this is the username field. The tag name is input. Okay, and type is email. There is one attribute. There is an attribute name, and there is an attribute ID associated with this text box. If any tag or if any element, when I say any element, every element has a certain tag name. If any tag has an ID, it's really easy to identify that tag, or it tag basically means an element. Okay, the username field over here has the input tag, and this input tag has an ID. If any element has got ID or name, these are supposed to be unique. There is an unwritten rule which every developer knows, that if you are giving an ID or a name to any element on the web page, it has to be unique. And for Selenium, if any element has an ID or a name, for Selenium to identify that particular element becomes really easy. Because once you have opened the browser, you have reached the web page, say I want to reach this particular web page, and once I reach the web page, I have to get the title and then I have to interact with the elements of the web page. To interact with the elements of the web page, or to enter the username, suppose over here, if I'm having for this text field, if I find an ID, it really becomes easy if I get the ID of the element or I get the name of the element. I can use this. And no matter if I'm using Chrome or even if I use, say, Firefox. On Firefox also, if I visit the same URL and I inspect the same text field, then this text field would be having an ID. If this text field has an ID, the ID is username in case of Mozilla, and in case of Chrome also the ID is username. So page source remains the same. That's what I told you. You identify the elements in one browser and script will run on all the browsers. This ID will remain the same. So I can write some script which extracts the element with this particular ID from the web page and tries to type values or tries to type something inside that element. So how do I write that particular script? How do I write the scripts to interact with the elements on the web page? First of all, understand one thing. In Selenium, there is something known as web element. Web element, it's a general name for any element on a page. A button is a web element. A link is a web element. Everything on the web page is a web element, and you have to extract the web elements from the web page and you have to interact with them. And the easiest way to extract them is with name or ID. Okay, right. If you look at the documentation, is it becoming too heavy for everyone? I know, initially people feel that, especially in the weekend batch when the classes are for longer duration.
It's fine.
That's fine. So in Java documentation, if you look at the API docs, you will see that if you scroll down, there is this interface known as web element. We had seen the WebDriver interface. WebDriver interface helped us to open the browsers dynamically. Now there is an interface known as web element. This interface will help you to interact with the web page. This basically represents a generic HTML element. Okay, and it's got functions which are helpful in interaction on a web page. For example, clearing a value of a text field, clicking on an element, or getting the location of the element, getting the size of the element, getting the text of the element. Is displayed will tell you whether the element is displayed on the web page, is enabled, is selected, submit. So these are the functions which you perform on a regular basis. As a user also, you perform these functions. You click somewhere, you type somewhere, okay. So, or you clear the value of some element. Okay. So the web element interface has got these functions which will help you interact with the elements on the web page. But the steps are like this. First, you have to extract the element, and then you have to interact with the web element. Okay, so if you first, obviously, if you have to extract element, or you will have to find the element on the web page, web element, and then you will have to write some function to interact with it. To extract the web element, we have the command driver dot find element. Driver dot find element command will find the web element on the web page with a given criteria. These criterias, there are many criterias with which you can find the element on the web page. And these criterias are defined by this particular class. There is a class known as by class. Okay, class by. This has got criterias or mechanisms to use to locate the elements on within a document or within a web page basically. You can identify the elements based on ID. You can identify the elements based on link text, name. These three are very simple. If an element has ID or a link, obviously link text, and or if it has a name, it is really easy. Otherwise, you use something known as CSS selector, or sometimes class name, or sometimes XPaths. We'll talk about all these locator strategies one by one. There are many ways starting with ID or name. So when you write driver.find element, you have to give the locator strategy by which criteria you have to identify it. By the ID, all these are static functions in the by class. You can directly access them with the class name because static things can directly be accessed. I say by the ID and I type the ID of the username over here. From the web page, I extract the ID. So this will find the element with this particular ID on the web page and will return you the reference of web element interface. I can call it say a username. Okay, you import this web element interface. So driver.find element command returns you the reference of the web element interface. It finds the web element on the web page by a given criteria. Okay. And what do you have to do with the element? You have to interact. You have to say type. Send keys function in web element is used to type inside the element. Okay, I can type hello user. So when you run this code, this will launch the browser, take you to the URL, and type inside it. You see that? Now, if I just change the browser over here, the same script will run on Mozilla as well. So you just need to change the browser name on the top, and the same script which you have written in Chrome to type in your username in that particular element will work in case of Mozilla as well. You see that? Right? And that's it. So this is the advantage. That is your one script which you are writing can work in multiple browsers. Okay, so first you have to extract the element. You have to write driver.find element command. You get the web element, and what do you want to do with the web element? Send keys will type, click function will click on it, clear function will clear the value. Okay, there are many functions in web element interface. We'll see them gradually. Okay, so let's have a break for around 10 minutes. Okay, we'll see each other after 10 minutes. You can also have some rest. Okay, and you can also think about few questions if you're having, and we can discuss them after 10 minutes. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Hello everyone. Let's start. Okay. Um, I'll share my screen. So I said like we have the web element interface, and you can get the reference of that interface with a simple driver.find element command, and then you can write the command which will interact with the element. Similarly, you can extract the password field. If you look at the password field, this is input with the ID password. Okay, and name PW. So if an element has got an ID or a name, it is really easy to identify it. We can write over here driver dot find element by the name. There is also an option to extract the element by name or by ID, which are two easy ways. Name is PW, and you can give the name over here dot. You extract the password web element password, and you can type something inside it. You can write password web element dot send keys user password. Okay, then you can click on the login button. This is the login button. Okay, the ID of this button is login. Fine. So you can extract the element. You can write driver dot find element by the ID, again login, and this will give you the login button. Okay, this is the login button, and you just have to click on it. Okay, so click is also one of the functions in web element interface, and when you run this code, this will actually go and type in username password field and will try to log in. You see that it is unsuccessful though, but it worked. So first you have to extract the element and then you have to interact with it. To extract the element, you have to write a separate line. To interact with it, you have to write a separate line. We can combine both these lines into one line. Okay, there is no need to write two lines. You can simply write like this driver dot find element dot send keys. So extraction starts from the left to the right side. First, the web element is extracted, and on that web element, then you fire the function like send keys or something. Over here also, for login button as well, to interact with it, you first extract it and then you fire the click function on the web element. Okay, so there is no need to write two lines or something. You can simply write one line after another as well. Okay, I hope uh, you have understood my point over here. Now, once you have driver.find element commands placed like this, and if you run it, the output will still be the same. Okay. Now there are three things which I wanted to discuss regarding this. First of all, what if there are two elements on the page with same ID, username? Although, this is not good, not recommended. Multiple elements on the page should not have same ID. But still, if they have, then what should be done? Okay, so if multiple elements on the web page have the same ID, then which one will Selenium extract? That is also the question. Look, what Selenium does is that when it scans the web page, it scans the web page from top left to the bottom right side. Okay, it scans the web page like this. It goes from left to right and it goes down. Okay, and if there are two elements on the web page which have the same ID, suppose one element is over here, the other element is over here, they have the same ID. Then when you write driver.findElement command, Selenium will use the first one by default. It will ignore the second one. If we have to use the second one, there are ways to do that. We'll look at it later on. But driver.findElement command will always find the first element on the web page. Okay, which is towards the top left side, the element which is found first. Okay, first thing. Secondly, in Java or in Selenium, you can also debug your programs. Debugging means you can run this program line by line and check the status at every point. This helps you as a beginner when you encounter errors, when you really don't know where things are going wrong. Okay, so as a beginner, it's obviously going to help you a lot. On the line number 30, you just double click in front of the line and make a breakpoint. Okay, you see this small dot coming up and run it in the debug mode. Instead of clicking on this run button, you click on this small bug icon. This is a debug icon. You click on this and the project will run in the debug mode. The browser will launch and you see that you'll get a window like this. You can switch to the debug perspective and the code stops on this particular line. It gets highlighted. Okay, you can see different variables like driver is equated to Firefox driver, browser name is Mozilla. You can see different variables. And if you hit F6 of the keyboard right now, the script has just stopped on this particular line. It is executing and this is the blank Mozilla browser which has just started. If you hit F6 of the keyboard, then this particular line gets executed. Okay, so I'll hit F6 and this line will get executed and you will see that browser opens this particular page. And the control comes to the next page, next line where I'm printing the title. If I hit F6, then I will see the title being printed at the bottom in console. If I hit F6 again, then username field will be extracted. And if I hit F6 again, line number 40 will run and this will type something in the username field. It will type hello user. So if I hit F6 again, so this will run and type hello user over here. You see that? So F6 is line by line execution. If I hit F8, F8 will run this program normally. Okay, normally it will run and it will terminate. So F6 is line by line execution and F8 is normal run. So this is what is important. Okay, because as a beginner, you make mistakes when you write some complex logics and all. So you need debugging at that time. And you can, when you're debugging under the variables tab, you can actually see the actual execution variable status. Okay. And you can switch back to the normal view. You just click on this Java perspective icon or click on this small open perspective window and select Java from here. You will move back to the normal page. Okay. Now, as a beginner, what happens at times, you also make mistakes. You by mistake or by chance, you close this console window and you really don't know how to bring it back. Or you close this package explorer and you really don't know how to bring it back. It's simple. You go to window and show view. You can select options. I can select console and console will come back, or Windows show view. You can select project explorer and project explorer will come back. Okay. And one more important feature is there in Eclipse. Always keep these two arrows. You see this link with editor. Always keep this clicked. This way, what will happen is that whichever Java file is opened in the editor will be highlighted on the left side. If I open browser.java, then browser.java will be highlighted. If I open test browser, then that will be highlighted. If you don't click these arrows, then whichever file you select, nothing gets highlighted in the project on the left side. But if you keep them clicked, then you know, as you select the files, those files are highlighted and it helps a lot. Okay. So these are some basic things in Eclipse and debugging. Debugging is really useful because you just saw that you could actually run the program line by line. And when you're a beginner, you really need these tools. Okay. Anyways, so we have written a script which opens the browser, finds the element with ID or a name, interacts with the web page. It is typing something in the username field. It is clicking. And I told you the process of extraction of the element as well as interaction of the element. I have written it in one line. Okay. Now life is easy till the time you are finding the elements with ID or a name. But every element has not got an ID or a name. Not every element on the web page would have this. If suppose on this web page I have to, let's look at this checkbox. Hold on. I think this must be having an ID. Yeah, this has an ID. Or let's look at this link, a forgot password. This forgot password link has an ID. What if it was not having an ID? How would you would have interacted with it? Well, as far as links are concerned, you can identify the links with the link text as well. Okay, I can use the command that is driver dot find element by the link text as well, and I can do whatever I want. Okay, or I can also use a partial link text. I can write driver dot find element by the partial link text, in which I can give some partial text from the link, and a Selenium will interact with that link and it will be able to find it. Okay, so ID, name, link text, partial link text, these are easy, but there are many elements on the web page which won't have an ID. Okay, for example, this button free trial. Let us look at this free trial link. Yeah, this free trial link is just a span. You see this free trial link? It's a span tag. It's got no ID, nothing. So how do you interact with such elements over here? Okay, to interact with such elements, we use the concept of XPaths or CSS selectors. We'll talk about XPaths first, We will master the XPaths and we will see scenarios with XPaths. And then later on, we will look at CSS selectors as well. Okay, so XPaths are something which which obviously they make your work easy, no doubts about it. Okay, but you should have the skill to find the XPaths of the elements on the web page. Okay, this is the major thing. Otherwise, these commands driver.find element by link text or by XPath, anybody can write. But building the locator based on which you will extract the element from the web page, that is important. And that is the skill which you actually need to have as well. And that is the skill which you need to develop. Because as I told you, not every element would have an ID or a name. Okay, so let's look at XPaths now. Guys, are you comfortable? Like this is the second class on, in weekdays class, I take a class of say 50 minutes, 55 minutes, and weekend it's a longer class. People did tend to get confused. Should I start with XPaths right now? What do you say? Are you comfortable? Is it okay?
I think it's fine, Ashish, for me. And maybe we can come back to the video again and see if we don't understand, isn't it? You'll send the link, right?
Yeah, I will send the link to the video.
Not sure
Yeah,
about that. Yeah.
yeah, Ashish, you
You,
can go
you,
ahead with the XPath for today.
okay. So XPath is something. I'll make a new under interfaces. I'll make a new file. I'll call it as xpaths.txt. Look, XPath is something you can say it is like the address of the element on the web page. Okay, like you have an address. That address uniquely identifies you, the place where you live. Right. Similarly, an XPath on the web page is like the address of the element on the web page. And there are two types of XPaths. One is known as a complete XPath, and other one is known as a partial XPath. Complete, or you can also say absolute XPath. So a complete XPath is something which starts from the root of the document. If you look at this, then in Chrome Inspector, you have the option to copy the full XPath, the second one. Okay, if you copy the full XPath, then this is what the complete XPath looks like. It starts from the root of the document, the HTML tag, and goes to this input tag. So how does it work? Okay, I'll tell you. Look, in the page source, you see that, which I'm having. The first tag is the HTML tag. Okay, and it starts from this HTML tag and it traverses down between the tags until the time I think this is the input tag. It reaches over here. Okay, how does it do? Let's look at it in detail. I'll hit Control F of the keyboard and you will see a small text box coming at the bottom in Chrome Inspector where you can also type in something. And I'm going to paste this complete XPath over here. When I paste this XPath over here, it highlights the element in the page source as well as on the browser. It's highlighting at both the locations and it says that 1 out of 1 element is found. That means it is able to find the element. So the base starting point is the HTML point. Okay. If I just write HTML, so it highlights the HTML element on the web page. Inside the HTML element, I have to go inside the body tag. I go inside the body tag. Okay, because there are two elements under the HTML element. One is the head tag, other one is the body tag. So you go inside the body tag because the username field is lying somewhere inside the body tag. Inside the body tag, we go inside the first division. Div1 means the first division under the body tag. Under the body tag, there are many divisions. These are parallel to each other. There are three divisions. All these three are parallel to each other. In order to reach the username field, you have to go inside the first division. So you write like this, div bracket 1. This means go in the first division. If I would have written div bracket 2, then the second division would have highlighted 3. So these are parallel divisions. These are not nested divisions. These are parallel to each other. Okay. And then go forward and you traverse down like this under one division, under this. For example, there's a point when you will reach this particular division. You see that? Under this division, you have got 1, 2, 3, 4 parallel divisions. And as per the XPath, you go inside the second division under this division because this second division holds the element of your choice, the username field somewhere under it. So if I write div slash div2, that means the inside this particular division, you have to go inside the second division. Okay, so this is how the complete XPath is made. You can copy it from the browser simply. So every element can have this, even the login button. If I look at the login button over here, this is the code and you right click on the code and you copy the full XPath for this element and you will get this. But we don't prefer to use complete XPaths. The reason is very simple. They are good. They are very accurate. Okay. They sometimes nothing works. The complete or the absolute XPaths, they do work. They start from the document root, go to the element. They have the pinpoint accuracy. But if something changes in the document, if something changes at the very root level, if I add a division or something over here, then this is going to go for a toss. Okay, then the complete XPath, it goes for a toss and not just one, all your complete XPaths of the application will go for a toss. Okay, so we don't prefer to use these complete XPaths. Okay, when nothing works, we can use them. Okay, how do we write the code with XPaths? It's simple. For example, if I would had to click on the button, on the login button, then this was the XPath for login button. Okay, so you just copy the XPath and you go over here and you type driver dot find element by the XPath and you give the complete XPath dot click. You can simply write the code like this. You have the option by the XPath. You have the option by the ID, by the name of the element. If ID or name is not there, you get the XPath. And when you run this, you see that it works. Okay, but again, I'm telling you, this thing is not something on which you can rely, because as I told you, we don't make the code for today. When we are making an automation project, we think down the line as well. If something changes in the application, and if I have 5,000 test cases with each test case having at least 10 XPaths, I will have 50,000 XPaths. And if all of them are complete XPaths, and if something changes in the application, even 5,000 XPaths they change, then I will actually end up spending 2 weeks to correct all of them and to test my application again properly. So we refrain. Okay, sometimes you can use them. Okay, what we do is that we use partial XPaths. Partial XPaths are some things like which are shorter. Okay, I don't say that they don't change, they can also change, but the chances are less. They start with a double slash. Partial XPath will always start with the double slash. Double slash star. This basically means all elements on the web page. Okay, if I copy this, all the tags on the web page basically, I hit Control F and paste it over here. It will say 1 out of 177 elements, 777 elements. So if I click on the down arrow, it will select one tag at a time. Okay, so this double slash star, although it represents all the elements on the web page, you should be knowing about it. Okay, we don't directly use it. If I write double slash A is the tag name for every link on the web page. So this will basically represent all the links on the web page. Okay, every link has the tag name A. So it says 1 out of 27. So there are 27 anchor tags, 27 links on the web page. This kind of XPath will represent every link on the web page. Okay, now if I am using this username field, suppose this is the username field. I copy the full XPath, I will get the complete XPath. But if I copy the XPath, the option which is above full XPath, I will get the partial XPath. Okay, if I copy this and paste it here, this will be the partial XPath. Partial XPath, you just have to replace double quotes with single quotes. Is that double slash star, that means all the elements on the web page. Out of all the elements on the web page, give me the element whose ID is username. Okay, or I can be more specific. The tag name for this element is input. Okay, instead of star, I can write double slash input. That means out of all the input tags on the page, give me the element whose input tag is username. So this is the partial XPath for the username field. If I just go to my dynamic browser's code and I can simply commit this and I can write simply driver dot find element by the XPath of the username field dot send keys hello user. So this will go and type something in the username field, and when you run this code, This will go and type. The output will still be the same. Okay. So in case of partial XPaths, we always start the partial XPath with a double slash. Okay, for example, we saw that this free trial link span was not having any ID. So I will have to get the partial XPath of this element to identify it, copy the XPath, and the partial XPath of this element looks something like this. It gives me a complete XPath. Why does it give you the complete XPath? I'll tell you this in 5 minutes. Just hold on. Okay. I was also not knowing that it will give me the complete XPath. Okay, just a minute. Suppose this is the image, Salesforce image on the top. Okay, it's got an ID. Or let's go over here. Okay, say CNN.com. Okay, now suppose out here, this is the link. Okay, if I inspect the link, and this is the link. Okay, now over here, this is basically a span tag. If I want to get the partial XPath, I'll go and copy the XPath. And what I get is something like this. Now what happens is that this is the span tag. This span tag has got no ID. So it jumps one step above to this anchor tag, which is visible in the XPath over here. The anchor tag itself has got no ID, so it jumps to the h3 tag, which is over here. This h3 tag has also got no ID, so it jumps one tag above and it keeps on jumping till the time it finds an element which has an ID. Okay, maybe it is over here. Yeah, this is the element. This element has an ID. So it starts building the XPath from this element and it goes down to the span tag. Although this looks weird, but at least it is not building the XPath from the very root of the document. It finds the nearest element with an ID and starts building the XPath from that particular element. That's how partial XPaths they work. In case of Salesforce, when I was looking at this free trial link, okay, and if I was copying the XPath, I was getting the full XPath over here. This was because it goes to the span tag and it tries to find, it traverses above, it keeps on traversing to find an element with an ID and it fails to do that and it reaches the head tag. So between this head tag and the free trial element, there is no element which has an ID. So it fails to make the partial XPath and it by default gives you the complete XPath in case of free trial button. Okay. So you should always tell your developers if you have the access that try to give IDs to maximum elements so that you are able to write stable scripts. Okay, if you are giving IDs to elements, then your scripts will be easily able to identify the elements with shortest possible XPaths like this rather than building big XPaths like this. Writing big XPaths is not a problem, but the problem is if something changes in between tomorrow in these XPaths, you have to change them. Okay, right? And you have to be careful with the XPaths as well. Okay, because there are many ways in which you can build. I have just talked about one of the ways to build the partial XPaths. Okay, that is, you just inspect the element and you just copy the XPath and all. Okay, in Chrome browser, right click on the element and you can copy the XPath. But you can also build your own customized XPaths, which will be shorter than the ones which are given by the browser. So you don't rely on the XPaths given by the browsers. You tend to build your own XPaths. Okay. I will not talk about custom XPaths right now. I'll talk about it in next class, next week. If you have any questions, you can ask me anything. Okay.